This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, what's up? Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And Mark, I didn't say this on the Primetime Podcast, but I forgot. They're probably gone by now. Mm-hmm. New year, new us. We've got new graphics that pop up.
There you go.
They're white and they show our colors. So for you and I, they're blue text before it goes to black text.
It's pretty.
And it looks a lot better than a black bar that would just come across the bottom and go out. Mark's like, whatever, it's a bar. It comes across, it tells you what to do.
It's one of those, like, things happens for 5 seconds, makes you happy. Nobody else noticed. Nobody else even realized or cared.
But New Year, New Us, this is our second podcast because we had last week's. Was it part of
the first one we recorded in 2019?
But today we got a jam-packed show talking about coaches getting hired. We're going to talk about some, not most of them. Some we're going to hold over for other ones. But today we're going to be talking about Matt LaFleur. I think that's how you say it, Matt LaFleur. Green Bay Packers hiring him. So we're going to talk about what it means for the Packers and can he bring them back to Super Bowl contention. Then we're going to look at, I'm actually going to change the title because originally it was Should the Cardinals make Cliff Kingsbury the next coach? Well, they did. So we're going to talk about that decision in general. And then we're going to wrap up the show before our picks talking about Dwayne Haskins, his best fits, because he is now declared for the NFL draft. He is going to be the first quarterback off the board. And then we're going to end things making our picks for the divisional round. And I will tease in that segment, Mark, I'm going to ask you for your reaction about your Bears loss. So I'm going to tease it now, but I'm going to ask you for that when we get to the picks. And Mark's probably like, whatever, it's the Tuesday after. So,
it's Tuesday.
And it's all over by this point. But before we get into our first topic, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That's how you help support the show. We can't do what we do each and every week without the support from our patrons. But Mark, let's look at the first topic. Matt LaFleur, he was the OC with Sean McVay and the Rams. Then last year, or this past year, was the OC with the Tennessee Titans under Mike Vrabel. He is now the new head coach of the Green Bay Packers. What are your thoughts? First off, just your thoughts on the Packers making LaFleur their head coach, because many thought it was going to be Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, and Josh McDaniels afterwards was essentially like, all right, I'm good. If I'm not getting Green Bay job, I'm staying in New England. But to me, this is an obvious, we don't want anybody to be in Aaron Rodgers' way. Because, so LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in air quotes.
Because Sean McVay was the offensive coordinator.
In L.A. Because Sean McVay was like, hey, you want to hold this clipboard? And that was about it. And we're joking, but that's why he left. That's because you're like, why would anyone offensive leave the LA Rams to go to the Tennessee Titans? Sorry, Titans fans. Your offense is nothing, essentially. But that's why Matt LaFleur did it. He left because he wanted more control. He wanted more say. And what better place to be than the offensive coordinator where there's a defensive head coach? Because he's going to tell you what? Hey, do whatever you want. I don't care as long as we score points. And unfortunately for Matt LaFleur,
it's kind of like Vic Fangio in Chicago. Hey, stop them from scoring.
That's the whole NFL's MO right now. McVay's doing it with Wade Phillips. Nagy does it with Fangio. It's this whole idea of get this young offensive mind and get somebody else to deal with the rest. And Matt LaFleur goes to the Tennessee Titans, and I'm sure everybody's seen some stat by now. I think it was, 27th ranked offense. Could have been 28, 29, something around there. They're at the bottom of the 20s in their ranked offense for the Titans. Now, there's some things that you can say about that. It took a while to get the running game going. Marcus Mariota's been unhealthy, and he's on his fourth or fifth offensive coordinator now. However many years he's been in the league, that's how many offensive coordinators he's had. So it took a little bit to learn. But still, you look at this Titans offense, and there was nothing special about it. So to me, this is just a very obvious, we're just going to put you here. We don't really want you to do anything. we're going to let Aaron do some stuff, and you just kind of fix a few things. But leave Aaron alone, but maybe fix like our offensive line and our wide receivers.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it, and of course stats don't tell the complete story, but you look at last year to this year, points per game for the Titans actually went down by just almost 1.5 for them, and passing yards, because really that's what you're going to look at with Aaron Rodgers. Tennessee, like you said, 29th in the league this year in pass yards per game, where last year they were 23rd, 199 per game last year to 185, and some of that is some teams put up some more yards than they did last year. But I mean, the thing that I look at is this a recipe for them to get back into Super Bowl contention? I don't really know, because and the reason why I don't know that is I have not seen Matt LaFleur as the guy. And exactly what I'm going to look at is look at John DeFilippo this year. Where I know it wasn't a head coaching role, but when he was with the Eagles, he was like the next hot guy. Where it was like the Bears interviewed him, like mainly everyone from that Eagles staff got interviews. And when he went over to the Vikings, it's like, oh, he's going to be the next like offensive mind that gets hired. And of course, he got fired this year. So of course, he wasn't going to get hired. It was a little
too early for him,
for a head coaching job. And you look at it, and could LaFleur be like Frank Reich? He could be. There's that situation where Reich came over, offensive coordinator, now the head coach with the Colts. But that organization is being very well put together by their GM Ballard, and
it's getting pulled apart now. But
you think so?
Well, yeah, all the assistant coaches left.
True. I mean,
it got pulled apart.
You're saying the Eagles got pulled apart.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Colts.
Yeah, I meant the Eagles got pulled apart.
The Colts are being put together, and it's being very nicely done right now. Where, like Colin Cowherd today said that he's kind of, with him, it's like you're just seeing the start of a Colts dynasty that could be beginning.
Could be.
Maybe that's a little bit too soon for it. But for me, I wonder what this hire says. Number one, we want somebody who's going to scheme for Aaron Rodgers, because Matt LaFleur is a guy that's going to do what Mike McCarthy didn't, where basically I am going to make up schemes, make up plays that's going to put Aaron in the right situations for success. The second part of this is what new weapons are you going to put around him, because the weapons that you had this year are not going to be enough.
Yeah.
You need more.
And that's actually one of... I've had a lot of criticisms for the Packers hiring Matt LaFleur. Most revolve around the fact that we haven't seen anything out of him yet, so it is a risk. They're really rolling the dice and counting on Aaron Rodgers to pull him through.
He's also not going to... In my mind, he's not going to be a guy that challenges Aaron Rodgers.
I don't think so either. And I think it's almost like a Kobe situation. He's a player coach.
Yeah.
And just let Aaron do what Aaron wants to do. But the one thing that I think actually does work really well, and maybe this is what the Packers looked at, is they looked at Corey Davis and said, Corey Davis was nothing, and Matt LaFleur made him a quality wide receiver. A guy who looks like maybe he can become a number one wide receiver like we all expected him to when he got drafted. You know, that was a big benefit to this Titans offense, and hopefully the Titans fans out there were hoping was going to be a continuation for next year, because I've been a big fan of Matt LaFleur's when he was with the LA Rams, saying he's going to be that hot guy. Then this year I was like, maybe not, because of what we saw at the Titans. Maybe we hold back, and maybe it's next year that he becomes that hot commodity. I was expecting one more year with the Titans. I just think that the Packers went on it a little early, but I think that Corey Davis is part of that. They saw what they were able to get out of a guy that a lot of people were writing off as a wide receiver. The Packers are saying, we've got shitty wide receivers. Can you make ours better too? Because that was what he did best, was make Corey Davis a better wide receiver.
Well, not just that, but you look at this year, it wasn't just about the passing game. Like, Derrick Henry, especially late in the year, looked like the Derrick Henry that we used to see playing for the Crimson Tide. And I know that when he was with, I know you could say like, oh, like McVay was the OC for the Rams, but Todd Gurley with the Rams, Derrick Henry with the Titans, and then I go ahead and I look at the Packers, and that's the one thing I look at, and I go, the running backs that are on this team, is Jamal Williams, like, is he going to be expected to now be, like, is this going to be something that benefits Jamal Williams, and he's going to be the guy that steps it up in his third year in the NFL? Or is it going to be something where it's like, hey, I need to get my running back
Go get somebody.
Here. I need to go get a Le'Veon Bell and get him in.
And because Todd Gurley, I mean, I don't think anybody can compare somebody right now to what Todd Gurley is.
I mean, top 1 or 2 back in fantasy, depending on what David Johnson feels like doing.
So that's a whole different thing right there. But to me, that's what I see. But this one and the next one that we're going to talk about fairly soon just spells what the NFL is right now. It is get a young guy, so that way a young offensive guy, and just make him your head coach, because you don't want your hot offensive coordinator prospect to get Matt LaFleur, essentially, or to get Sean McVay. You don't want one of these guys. You can even throw Matt Nagy in there because he really only had that 1 year with Kansas City as the offensive coordinator. You don't want to have that hot, young offensive coordinator that everybody's excited about that makes your team better, and then some other team goes, thanks, we'll take him from here, and makes him your head coach. You just put him straight in the head coach position, especially if you can make him head coach / offensive coordinator and say, hey, we found consistency.
Yeah.
You know, what's the worst thing for Mariota? He never has the same offensive coordinator. What sucks for every single Chicago quarterback before, essentially, now what we hope, Mitch Trubisky, they had 1 million offensive coordinators, 1 million head coaches.
Well, it helps when your head coach is your OC.
Well, it just helps to have somebody who's going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
And that's, look at the Cleveland Browns. Nobody can ever succeed because it's a revolving door at everything until recently. This is the Packers, and the Packers are different because they have Aaron Rodgers a little bit, but they had Mike McCarthy, such a huge, consistent type of guy, and they're coming in now saying, we're just putting this guy who we like, we're putting him right in there. We don't care if it's a little bit early. We're going to give him the time that he needs, and we got a quarterback that's going to help pull him a little bit as well, and we don't need to make any changes in a year or two.
Well, let me ask you this then, because what I was looking at this today, where the Packers, the last 2 seasons have been interesting for Green Bay. Whereas, so 2016 was the last time the Packers made the playoffs. They got to the conference championship. That was the year where they beat the Giants in the wild card, beat the Cowboys by 3 in the divisional, lost to the Falcons in Atlanta before the Falcons went on to spoil the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Well, get it spoiled on themselves.
Yes. 2017, Aaron Rodgers is injured. They go 7-9. 2018, Aaron Rodgers is healthy, however bad season.
Healthy-ish.
They go 6 because he got injured week 1 against Khalil Mack and the Bears. 6-9-1. Almost the identical record. Like, they would have beat the Vikings.
Half a game better.
Like, they would have basically been the same. And I look at it, or half a game worse.
Half a game worse.
What I look at is, the question I'm going to ask you is, with Matt LaFleur, is this team a playoff team next year? Because you look at it, they were 6-9-1. They were basically, 2.5 games out of being a 6th wild card team.
I think that with Matt LaFleur doesn't matter to me, because as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, they're always going to be in competition for a playoff spot. They made it 8 years in a row. There's only been 2 seasons of Aaron Rodgers that they haven't made the playoffs?
Well,
or
technically 3.
Yeah.
Because 2017, you'll put an asterisk.
Yeah.
Because they just...
Because he wasn't there. He was hurt. But I think this year, and then essentially I think it was his, first year.
So, because I want to see when he exactly started as a starter. So he was the full-time starter in 2008. His first year. 2008, they went 6-10 ever since they'd made the playoffs until 2017.
So I don't care who the offensive coordinator or head coach is. Make me the head coach. You'll go to the playoffs. You got Aaron Rodgers. And that's playing it down a little bit, but I don't think it matters necessarily. And I think that Green Bay knows that. That's why they're willing to take the gamble that works a little bit easier for them than it does for the Arizona Cardinals to say, we'll take the young guy. If he makes some mistakes, that's fine. He's got things we like. And we're going to let that grow a little bit, and we're going to work with that. Now, for me, I do think they potentially are a playoff team because I don't think this team is that far away from being able to make the playoffs, because really they weren't that far away from 2.5 games is what it was. So they weren't that far from being there.
Let's be honest. Like, I'm looking at it right here. The Viking won for sure, because that was the 29-29 tie.
Could have won it.
You get a kick bounce the other way. You're winning that game. The Rams, 29-27, ball bounces the other way. You get a win there. And then at Seattle, 27-24, ball bounces another way. Boom, there's your 2.5 wins to put you at 9-7. And the Eagles, did they play the Eagles this year? They did not play the Eagles, so they wouldn't have the head-to-head tie. But those are 3 games, and the Arizona one was a 3-point game too, so that could be a potential 3.5 game swing.
Exactly. I mean, the Packers are always going to be there. To me, when I look at Matt LaFleur, it's just why Matt LaFleur over anybody else. To me, I look at him and say, yes, I think that there's potential there. And everybody thought there was potential.
Is it what I said, though? Is it because they didn't want somebody... Were they afraid to go for like a Josh McDaniels because they were so afraid of what happened this year with McCarthy and Rodgers butting heads?
It could be, for sure. I mean, and I don't necessarily disagree that this is and that was one of the first things I said is, this is let Aaron be Aaron, and you do other stuff.
Like what we make fun of LeBron for in the NFL, or in the NBA, of basically like, oh, he's the coach, and you're a lame duck coach. Yeah, basically whoever's their head coach.
It's just, to me, I sit there and I say, there's nothing about Matt LaFleur that stands out to me that says, yes, this is the guy you should go for. Other than the fact that there's something they like, and they just kind of want Aaron to run the show. And LaFleur is going to complement some other things. I don't think he hurts anything. It's definitely a gamble. They're rolling the dice here and hoping it works out for him. It's a little bit easier for things to work out when you've got Aaron Rodgers. The problem is Aaron Rodgers this past year was not what we've seen Aaron Rodgers do in the past. So Aaron Rodgers needs to get himself kind of rejuvenated. But scheming out is going to help with that. Better wide receiver is going to help with that. Better offensive line is going to help. So offseason is going to help the Packers, I'm sure.
And you know what I find absolutely funny? One of the things from Stephen A. Smith's show today, you know what was one of the discussions
his radio
he had?
Show or
his radio show, not First Take. So the Stephen A. Smith show, he literally had a discussion where it's called Stephen A. wonders if Aaron Rodgers will ignore Matt LaFleur.
He probably will.
Where it's basically like, hey, I'm older than you. I know what I'm talking. Or like, I know what I'm talking about, because Matt LaFleur, I think, is he younger than Aaron Rodgers? I'm gonna look at the age really quick.
He's probably 40.
He is 39, so he is 4 years older than Aaron Rodgers, almost his equal. Yeah. He would have been a senior when Aaron would have been a freshman in high school.
Exactly.
So I mean, you're closer to being equals than one over the other.
Yeah, and that doesn't matter. What I think most is just that they're coming into this, and you have to know Aaron Rodgers is the star of the show. You get along with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers wants to audible, Aaron Rodgers audibles. If he wants to throw every single down, Aaron Rodgers throws every single down.
And hey, maybe LaFleur gives them that kind of I wanted to say
take the leash off.
Basically, of like, hey, I'm going to let you run the show out there. Like, if you see a different play, I trust you out there. Like, you're not some Joe Blow that we got that I can't trust, that I need to wear with kid gloves. I'm going to trust you. If you see something and you call an audible, I'm not going to take offense.
Do whatever you want to
run my play. But that is going to be the thing, is you got to set him up for success. And the first thing I wonder is, I look at the running backs, I look at the receivers. Is this enough to compete, or do you need to bolster that a little bit? because Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, that's about it
Well, they definitely
receiving-wise.
need more in the offseason, but
And I mean, they got two young guys that I like, Equiminius St. Brown. I think he can develop into something. Alan Lazar, another kid that I really like as he starts to get some more reps under him. I wonder what he develops into, but I just look at this offense and I go, I wouldn't be surprised if with their first pick, if a guy like Hollywood Brown is there or a guy like N'Keal Harry is available, if they go and take that with their first round pick in order to bolster that offensive side of the ball so that Aaron Rodgers has something to work with. Any final thoughts on this before we move into to me, the more interesting head coaching hire of the day? Any final thoughts?
not necessarily. I mean, I just think that they did something earlier than most teams probably would have.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. The one thing I'll say is interesting is Josh McDaniels didn't do what he usually did. Usually he accepts a head coaching job and then backs out of it and comes back to Bill Belichick. But he didn't do that. Or maybe the Packers were listening to Mark from last week and said, I would not hire Josh McDaniels because that's what he will do. But let us know what you guys think down below about Matt LaFleur getting the head coaching job for the Packers. Will they be back in Super Bowl contention? Are they going to be back in the playoffs next year? What else do they need to do? Let us know what you think down below in the comment section.